Now, Gauteng residents are faced with crumbling infrastructure that includes an aging power grid, lack of access to water and poor road network. The lack of maintenance and corruption are the main contributors to the breakdowns of infrastructure, leaving communities with continuous blackouts and water cuts. But what is being done to address these shortcomings in the province? Well, our reporter Heidi Giokos is on that story and joins me this morning with the very latest. Good morning, Heidi. A very dismal picture that is painted around our infrastructure. Just unpack this for us.
Yes, certainly, and I think part of that dismal picture is the fact that you have an influx of people coming into the city of Johannesburg for job opportunities or for whatever other reason it might be, but mostly job opportunities. And oftentimes you see the infrastructure in and around the city unable to cope with this influx. There are just too many people and just too little resources, and you normally see the infrastructure buckling under because it's just not coping. Are there plans to address this? What is actually going to be done about all of this? We are joined by the MMC for Infrastructure, Michael Sun. Thank you so much for your time, MMC. I know you're very busy, so I do appreciate you making time for us. I want to first start off and not with the issue of infrastructure, but with the big announcement yesterday from City Power saying that the city is going to find alternative sources of energy. And this should be quite a relief for you, especially because of the constant vandalism that we are seeing at our substations and just residents not being able to cope with the constant blackouts.
Oh, it was certainly, a very positive information for us to share. You'll remember in April this year, the city of Johannesburg held its first ever energy indaba with the leadership of our executive mayor, Dr. Mpopalatsi. And from that, we were able to consult with the experts, role players, academics, and understand what's best for Johannesburg in terms of the energy crisis. And leading up to today, or in fact yesterday, it was a culmination of months of hard work by our City Power colleagues under the multi-party government. We then released and issued a request for proposal, calling on independent power producers to say that when you are ready, you're available, please come talk to us and supply us with your capacity of power generation. The RFP closes on the 31st of January 2023, and we're hoping by then we will have a sufficient number of proposals that we can then take to the Department of Mineral and Resources and say, hey, listen, we've got all these proposals, can you give us the go-ahead in terms of the power purchasing agreement? And then we'll be able to bring in all that capacity into our grid, and hoping that we're going to move away from the Eskom load shedding. So, for example, Eskom should announce the stage 4. We're then able to bring our residents and customers in the city of Joburg down to a stage 2. So that is the short-term aim. Of course, the further RFPs will come out where we're looking for bigger capacitation, power generating plants. So it's really positive and good news for everybody.
I'm definitely not leaving Joburg now because of this, but just very quickly still on this topic, will this also include other areas and townships like Soweto, or are we only looking at suburbs here for now?
Well, this is for all the residents in the city. We know traditionally there are Eskom supplied areas like Soweto. We certainly want to look for alternative source of energy so that we can spread this electricity resource evenly to all our residents. So certainly within our strategy and plan.
Okay, let's move over to this very important issue about the fact that so many people move into the city of Johannesburg for job opportunities or whatever else it might be, and the infrastructure is clearly not coping with all of this. Many are saying that there were no plans to deal with all of this, to deal with the influx of people, and the infrastructure can only cater for a certain amount of residents. You as the MMC, what are the plans to sort this out? You must be under immense pressure because if you look around the city, a lot of the infrastructure is not coping and it is deteriorating.
We have new residents, coming into the city of Johannesburg every single day. In fact, Joburg attracts many workers, people seeking opportunities, visitors. It unfortunately creates a lot of strain on our resources. The network was simply not designed for that kind of capacity. But then again, when we see those loads of residents or visitors coming into the city, just even for a day, that creates a lot of strain on the resources, electricity, water. Electricity, we can make a plan always, getting the IPPs on board. But water resources is something different. There's a lot of restrictions and legislation, but most importantly, it's a natural resource. So our plan really, it's a multi-pronged approach. One, we need to ensure our current infrastructures are being maintained. We're looking after our electrical grid, our water pipes. We're replacing the old ones, replacing them with new ones. Just in the previous quarter, we replaced more than 100 kilometers of water pipes and just under 100 kilometers of sewer pipes. So those investments must be made by the city. And I think, moreover, projects such as the IPP procurement is really important, that we can't sit back and say, well, look, all these people is going to move in, all these people is coming to visit Joburg, but we don't have resources to supply. So we needed to change. But what's also important is that the waste that we generate, in terms of our other core mandate, in Pick It Up. When people use things, they're bound to generate waste. So there's also a lot of waste being generated. So we're also looking at that to say how we're going to better manage the generation of waste coming out of this, increasing population in the city.
I think you have many challenges because there's a lot that's at play here. I wish I had more time to ask you about the infrastructure issues, but I just quickly want to ask you one last question about, I hope I used the right word, retrieved or taken away. I'm just going to say taken away. We do know that certain fleet vehicles have been taken away from the city of Johannesburg because the contract was either not renewed or there was non-payment. Perhaps just give us some clarity and details as to what really went wrong and how this is going to affect services.
Yeah, well, we like to call it the fleet retrieval. Unfortunately, the contract with the suppliers, the two suppliers, came to an end, and whilst the matter was under the previous illegal administration, the matter was never dealt with. So when we came back, we really wanted to bring that council item back into council for approval, which is the extension of the fleet contract. And again, these items were blocked from coming to council. We couldn't deal with it. It does impact on our service delivery. For example, Joburg Water uses a lot of these leased vehicles. Now we are being defleeted or call it, vehicles being retrieved by the service provider. But the good news is that the acting city manager is working very hard at it, together with the MMC for GCSS, Leah Knott. So we are looking probably within today or latest tomorrow morning, the matter will be resolved and we are able to return to the normal service delivery for the residents.
Hopefully, because we don't want a situation where services aren't delivered. Just one last question. I want to ask you if you think the city can handle the influx of people, the infrastructure can handle the influx of people, and does this perhaps give you sleepless nights to say how we're going to deal with all these people coming in with little resources, aging infrastructure, and perhaps a limited budget as well to develop the infrastructure and perhaps build more for residents of the city?
It's certainly a huge challenge, people moving at a speed. I think the one study we've done, we're looking at about 3 new residents on a monthly basis to the city of Johannesburg. And again, we're not, saying that we're ignoring the fact that there are challenges. We certainly will ensure that we look for our own source of funding together with alternative source of funding to ensure that we increase the capacity into electricity, water, waste management, of course, many other things, like roads that also needs to be repaired, reinstatement of what Joburg Water is repairing pipes. I was on a tour yesterday. So all these are all under our plan of action. We are committed as a multi-party government. We ensure that these things don't, fly off the radar, but we will continue to fix Johannesburg until we get it right.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it, and we'll check in on you because I know there's a lot at play and a lot going on. But thank you so much for your time. That was the MMC for Infrastructure here in the city of Johannesburg, MMC Michael Sun. And I think, Mfundo, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people moving into the city of Joburg, but it seems as though the MMC is saying they have it under control and they're trying their very best to maintain that infrastructure, but also make sure that residents have what they need to basically survive in the city.